All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Graham Matthews. And as you know, I run Empowered STEM. And Empowered STEM is an A level course provider. And we provide A level courses in chemistry, biology, physics, and maths for those students that want to enroll in medical, dental, veterinary, financial, and engineering programs at the chosen university in the UK. So today, I wanted to come in and I wanted to talk about the transition from GCSE to A level. It has to be the top question that we're asked by parents all the time is this one. It's my teen. They did so well, Graham, with GCSE. They got the 8 and they got the 9, and then they started the A levels in year 12. They're doing chemistry, biology, maths, and why is it that they feel so overwhelmed by it? Well, what I'll do in this live stream is this, is by the end of this live stream, I will tell you the changes between GCSE and A level, why students struggle at first, but they are actually successful, and how you can help your teen build a bridge between GCSE and A level, build a bridge to success, to the A star grades without burnout. So, like I said, this is a problem that we see all the time is this one, is that the student is used to getting an 8 or a 9 at GCSE. And this is the grade they got. They got a certain study pattern set up, a certain way of revising, of studying, of learning information. And they've just got a cadence, a rhythm going. And the problem is that when they start A levels, all of a sudden they're barely keeping up with the workload. They're up all night, all day on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And it's a shock to the parents because the parents, the use of the teens bringing home top grades, top marks. And the issue is this one, is that although their teen is studying harder, they're putting in the time, effort, and attention. The problem is this: the marks are not there. They're not bringing home an A, a B. They're bringing home possibly a C, could be a D. And the parents are overwhelmed and they're stressed along with their son, their daughter as well. And there's a reason for this. And the reason for this, parents, is this, is that there's a gap, not just in the knowledge, but in the way that your teen approaches A-level maths and science. Yes, there's a huge knowledge gap between GCSE and A-level. So number one is a lot more knowledge that they need to know at A level than they did at GCSE. True, doesn't matter if you're doing chemistry, biology, physics, or maths. But it's also the thinking style, the independence, and the exam technique of your teen. So by thinking style, what I mean by this is that they are used to being passive learners. They're used to rote learning. They're used to a certain style of thinking at GCSE, which is if you just memorize the block of information at GCSE, if you have a superficial understanding of what's going on, then you can memorize enough mark schemes and you can earn the 8 or the 9. True. At A level, slightly different. The different thinking style. You need to be more of a critical thinker, be able to apply the information to novel situations. Also, independence. At GCSE, if you ask your son, your daughter at GCSE, they will tell you the teacher told us what to do. The teacher used to write the homework on the board when the homework was due. And every day they'd write the homework on, the homework due date on the board. Mm-hmm. And then when you come to A level, no, you just told, well, the exam's in 2 weeks. The exam's in 3 weeks. There's a mock exam coming up. Also, like I mentioned, the exam technique. Now, by that, I mean this, is that at GCSE, the exam technique was more memorization of content. Write down the key words, write down the buzzwords that the exam was looking for, and you got it. Whereas at A level, it's slightly different exam technique because it's more application based. It's more critical thinking. Now, the reason is that because at GCSE, what the GCSE exams are set up to do is just test recall. That's what they do. You know, it's a block of information you need to know at GCSE. Can you recall the information? Yes. Use your 8 or your 9. Fantastic. If you see the question in a review session, and you do it enough times, you can memorize the steps, what to do on the actual exam. It's the same question, possibly a few numbers, a few elements being changed around, but it's the same exact setup. Right. You don't need to understand it. You can just memorize the steps coming down to get the mark at the bottom. Right. This is GCSE. Now, I'm not knocking GCSE, by the way, parents. I'm not. But it's a GCSE. GCSE, you ask any teacher, any parent, any tutor out there, that'll all say, yes, it's just the recall of information, superficial understanding. It's like you're skimming the top of the pond. Whereas with A levels test reasoning. They test critical thinking, especially in the last 5 years. Okay, because what they've done is that Oxford University decided that too many students were getting the A's and the A stars in A-level maths and science. And so they needed to make them a bit more rigorous. And so what they did is that they didn't increase the content, the knowledge of content that you needed to have. What they did is that they started to have it more application-based questions in novel situations that you've never seen before. So you can't memorize your way to an A or an A star in A-level maths and science. You've got to understand the concept. You need to understand the reasoning and the logic behind it. Now, having said that, this is the reason why students struggle as they transition from GCSE to A-level. But it's not their fault. No, I'm not blaming your son. I'm not blaming your daughter. It's not their fault because no one has taught them how to think like an A-level student. You say, well, Graham, well, why not? Well, because they were GCSE students. And so the GCSE teacher didn't have to worry about that, did they? You know, as long as they can get them through the GCSE with the best grade possible, or with their predicted grade, well, that's fantastic. And they're going to leave the A-level teacher figure this out, teach them this. And this is where the problem is, because the A-level teacher, they don't have time to think, to teach your teen how to think critically. They don't have time to teach your teen how to study, how to revise, how to think critically, how to apply knowledge to novel situations like a true A-star student does. Why? Because they've got to get through the curriculum. They only have so many days, they only have so many weeks. And by the time you take all the weeks of the school year and you take out the lessons that your teen loses due to labs, due to practicals, due to exams, due to lab reports and write-ups, the number of actual teaching days for content and for exam strategy and for critical thinking actually gets less and less and less. It's a very, very few students have been taught how to study, how to revise like an A-level student. This is the reason why so many students find it difficult transitioning from GCSE to A-level. And normally the saying is this: normally the first term from September until Christmas, this is when the grade is going to slump, because they expect you to learn it, your teen to learn it, as well as learning the content. Now, there's core differences then in how your teen learns information. The first core difference between GCSE and A-level is this. It's depth over breadth. What I mean by that is that at GCSE, imagine your teen is just skimming the surface of the pond. It's all knowledge retrieval. For the teachers out there, it's the lower level of Bloom's taxonomy, isn't it? It's just recall. Okay. At A level, it's less topics, but it's more depth. They really want your teen to know, do they understand the topic? Do they understand the concept? Can they apply it in novel situations? Why? Because what they're doing is they're weeding them out to make sure that when they go to university, they can do the same exact thing at the university level, which is the next level up. Number two, it's application over memorization. Like I mentioned, it used to be, I'd say about a decade ago, it used to be that your teen, if they memorized enough mark schemes, then they could memorize their way to an A. And then the exam board decided to tighten up on that. And then, of course, there's tutors, there's group tutoring out there, there's private tutors out there. All of a sudden, too many teens were getting the A and the A star until, like I said earlier, Oxford University came along and said, no, we've got too many teens who are now getting the A and the A star. Some are memorizing their way into that top grade band, but other ones, it's just because they've been tutored. They don't really understand it. We need to make sure they can understand it, because this is the problem that they found, is that yes, they were meeting the requirements to get into university, but when they got into university, they couldn't do anything because they didn't know how to think critically. They didn't know how to apply the knowledge they're understanding. And so there was an issue with the first year of university students. So this is why they went back in and they fixed it at the A level. So this is the reason why over the last 5 years, it's now the tests have changed, the exams have changed, and now it's more application over memorization. Memorization will get your teen a C. Application will allow them to move up to the A star grade bracket. It's also self-management over teacher dependence. Like I said, at GCSE, your teen was told what to do. They were told, read these pages in the textbook for homework tonight, answer these questions, look at this past paper question, look at these mark schemes, do this homework set, and it's due on this day, and this day. It was mapped out for them. Basically, their study plan, their revision plan was set out for them. All they had to do was just follow the breadcrumbs to an 8 or a 9. An A level, no, it's not the same, is it? Your teen on the very first day of class sits there and the teacher says, right, syllabus, this is the date of your first exam. It's a month down the road. Let's begin. So there's nobody checking up on them, telling your teen, did you read these pages of the textbook? Did you do this homework set? Did you look at these questions? Did you do these past papers? Did you revise on the weekend? No, they're left to go figure it out. And the catch is that the teachers at the schools, that overworked and overwhelmed, they don't have time to teach your teen how to do it. Which means that they're left on their own. And the grade now becomes not so much more about understanding the knowledge, but time management, self-management, and application of knowledge. So question is then, parents, how can you as parents, how can you help your teen start to walk the bridge? to the A and the A star? Well, I would say first off, number one, set expectations early. All right. If your teen starts A-level chemistry, biology, physics, or maths with the expectation that they're just going to walk in and just get straight A's on every test, every homework set, every lab report they do, no, it's not a reasonable expectation. What I would say is that if your teen goes in thinking, I have a lot of work to do, I need to learn how to study, I need to learn how to revise as an A-level student, I need to learn how to think critically, I need to learn how to apply the knowledge. And yes, learning by very definition means that I'm going to get something wrong. That's a more reasonable explanation and expectation, right? Number two, because by the way, you can't, if you always get it right, you're never learning anything, are you? Because how can you learn something that you know? You can't. And so it's normal, parents, for students, your son, your daughter, to bring home a bad test result every once in a while, a bad lab report every once in a while, because that's where growth occurs. Number two is to encourage structure. Now, by this, I mean this. Look, your teen needs to have a study schedule. They need to have a revision plan mapped out. And this then tells them, this gives them a sense of structure. It lowers stress because they know what they're doing each day. And studies show that people that plan their next day are actually more successful. They achieve more than people that don't. Third thing is focus on progress and not panic. So, like I said, focus on the fact that your teen is attending class every day, doing the homework, going to whatever study session the school is putting on, asking questions, the revising on the weekend. They're doing their bit. They're doing what I would call the university try. Okay, this is what they need to focus on, is progress, something which is measurable, and you can help them with this. Something which is measurable. For example, did you study chemistry today? Did you do your homework? Did you read the textbook? Did you revise? Something which they can measure progress, not panic. Okay, and by that I mean this. If they bring home a bad grade, in A-level chemistry, for example, it's not the end of the world. And I say, wow, Graham, really? No, it's not. It's totally normal. If they bring home 2 bad grades in a row, then I would raise an eyebrow. What can you do to help? But what you've got to do is this, is just because they bring home a bad grade, don't panic. Because if you panic, they're going to panic, and that's not going to help, is it? All right. Rather focus on what they're doing right. What can they learn from the situation, rather than the panic. Okay. And the last thing is normalize struggle. It is normal in A-level. Look, A-levels, the 2-year courses, it is totally normal for it to be a struggle. Every day is not going to be a perfect day. There's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. There's going to be some topics your teen finds really easy to handle, and there's going to be some topics they honestly just struggle with, and that is fine. Because this means that what they're doing is they're learning. They're becoming the type of student that's beginning to understand the concept. Okay? It makes me think of, for example, going down the gym. I work out every day. Uh-huh. Do you think there's some days that I don't want to work out? Yeah. Are you thinking there's some days that, oh, this week I'm supposed to add on an extra half plate? That's not happening. Oh, I tried it one week, Next week, oh, gotta go back down and wait. That's fine. It's struggle. It's progress, because progress is not linear. Progress is kind of zigzagged, isn't it? It's like the stock market. It goes up, it goes down, maybe sideways, and everything else. So, question is then, parents, look, what can you do? What academic strategies can you put into place that's going to ease the transition of your teen from GCSE to A level? I would say start with a plan. Okay, and so very firstly, look, if you start with a plan before the A-level courses begin, number one, I'd have a light review of the GCSE topics before the term starts. Yes, I know they've done the GCSEs. They've done the GCSEs. Okay. Well, don't they deserve the entire summertime off? They've got A-levels coming in. Well, we covered this in a previous live stream, but the idea is, no. What they should be doing is that they should be doing some light review over the summertime in order to keep the concepts in their head, especially the GCSE concepts, because the first couple of weeks of A-level, they're just reviewing the GCSE concepts. So your teen's off to a good start. They're building a foundation at A-level. They have to review the GCSE concept a little bit before they dive into the A-level concept. Number two, break them of the habit of passive learning. We don't like passive learning. The passive learning, by the way, as covered in the previous live stream, it's where your teen is rereading notes, copying over notes, watching YouTube videos. No, not going to get them anywhere. Or memorizing mark schemes. It's not going to work. What they need to do is active learning. They need to practice active recall. Now, we have gone over the 6 pillars of neuroscience as they apply to learning. But for example, one of them is active recall. And so when your teen is studying, when they're revising, think of active recall, which is flashcards. Cover the answer up to the question, do the question and the time conditions, do the Feynman technique. Can you teach it to somebody else? If you can, then you must know it. Okay. Encourage curiosity. Yes, it's not just about the grade. It's about learning the concept. You see, look, if your teen goes in there and all they think is, right, all I'm going to do is learn exactly what I need to do to get this question right. Here's a question on the paper diagram. I understand how to do this exact question. That's brilliant. Unless the exam board on the next exam decides to reword the question, approach the question from a different angle. Oh, I see. Yes, you only learned one way of answering the question. You only understand it from one dimension. You don't understand it from all the other dimensions that the exam board can test you on about that question. Right. You're also missing out on synoptic links. Now, we talked about synoptic links in the previous live stream, but because you only understand the question in a very 2D way, you're not going to see the link between the year 12 and the year 13. And if we're talking about bridges today, GCSE to year 12, what do you think the next bridge is? Year 12 to year 13. Okay, so I would encourage curiosity, help them understand the concept deeply, and just become curious about it. So they really get a really deep understanding, like going down to the bottom of the lake, rather than a brief understanding. But also, this one is that you need to balance study with recovery. Yes, it's not healthy for your teen to always be studying. There is a school life balance that they need to have, like a mental break. So you say, well, yeah, Graham, you've been talking for a while, but you got any proof about this? I mean, does it actually work, all this stuff you've been talking about? Well, yes, it does. All right. Because what I've been talking about today, the pillars of neuroscience, the bridge between GCSE and A-level, how parents can help their teens be successful, is what we teach at Empowered STEM as part of our courses. Okay, it's what we talk to parents about. And it's this one. What we find is this, is that when the students come in to our year 12 course, they are overwhelmed. I mean, lovely students coming in, but they got the GCSE mindset. They're just going to study a certain way. They're going to revise a certain way. They're going to memorize the mark scheme a certain way. Why? Well, because it worked at GCSE. And then they hit the A levels at school. They enrolled in our course. Our courses are really in-depth courses that talk about the A level maths and science. And they become overwhelmed. They just become overwhelmed with the workload. And because overwhelmed with the workload, which is a behavior, they now have the belief that they can't do it. And this has to be the biggest problem that I tackle with students in the year 12 courses, is the belief that they can't do it because, well, Graham, it worked at GCSE. I applied the same techniques, and I'll look at it. I mean, I'm sitting at a U. I mean, is this actually possible? Year 12, how are you supposed to do this? Can I make a comeback? And so what we teach our students is this, is that we teach them that they need to understand the concept, not just a glib, glossy understanding of it, but a really deep understanding of the concept. All right, this is our conceptual clarity. They also need to have a structure to the work that they do, to their workload. So we help them build out study plans, revision schedules. And so there's a school life balance. And we also work on the mindset. We use a lot of academic coaching. We work on the mindset to get them to understand that, to believe in themselves, that they can actually do this. And it's this trifecta, it's this triad of understanding, structure, and mindset that really helps a student start to be successful. They start to turn it around. And so by Christmas time, what we notice is this. They start with this in September. By Christmas time, they're no longer struggling. They're now starting to move up the grade ladder, and they're now starting to bring home A's on their tests. They're now starting to bring home A's on the mock exams. And of course, because the behaviors changed, the belief changed, and the result changed. Okay, so like I said, numerous students have done this, and it's always the same thing. And what they say is this, and this one is Allison. Allison earned an A in year 13 chemistry, and she got into her first university choice to study neuroscience. Okay, well, she said one of the most important things that I learned at the courses at Empowered STEM was this, is that I learned how to learn. And because I learned how to learn, this is a skill that I can take with me to university. Now, I think that's a pretty good thing to have a student say at the end of a course. Not only did they get the A in A-level chemistry, they got into the university of choice, but they learned how to learn. All right. Now, thing is this, parents, look, your teen at GCSE, they got the 8, they got the 9 at GCSE. But now at year 12 A-level maths, A-level science, there is a bridge between the both subjects, GCSE and A-level. Okay. It depends how your teen wants to bridge it. They can do what most teens do, which is kind of somewhat get from GCSE to A-level, not really understand the concepts, have really poor study skills, revision strategies, and don't get the grade that they should have got. All right, they can become overwhelmed with A-levels. Or on the other hand, there are those students who take the right approach and they say, well, you know what? I need to work on my structure, how I structure my week, study skills, study plan, study skills, revision strategies. I need to work on my mindset and my belief. I need to tell myself that I can do this. And I need support, because the other saying is that studies have shown that with the right coach, with the right support, people go further than they can if they did it by themselves. And so if your team does have the right structure, the mindset, and the support, then they can cross confidently from GCSE to A level. So even if they started their A levels in year 12, they can still fix it and get those grades to move up from the U's, the E's, and the D's all the way up to the A and the A star. Okay. And they can set themselves on a foundation. They can start walking the walk, as we call it at Empowered STEM, start walking the path to the A star success, because your teen is capable of earning an A or an A star in A level maths and A level science. Now, parents, if what I'm saying to you in these live streams, if it makes sense, if you go, Graham, actually, you know what? It does make sense. I catch you on the Facebook version. I catch you on the YouTube version. Fantastic. What you need to do is either like the page on the Facebook version, okay, or hop over to the YouTube channel and subscribe, because every week we're always putting out these live streams to help your teen and you get the A and the A star at A level maths and science. If you're the teen and we give you the tips, the strategies, and what we know works as a parent to help support your teen. Now, if you're also thinking, well, actually, Graham, you know what? I'm interested in learning about one of your courses. Well, then it's easy to do it. Look, all you're going to do is click the link in the description below on the Facebook video, or the description below the video on the YouTube channel. All right. And you can reach out to a member of my team and you can have a non-sales, non-committal conversation. It's really easy. The conversation we have with parents is this. Quite simple, is that we need to make sure that you feel supported and are well taken care of, and that our course is a good fit for you and your teen. And so when you call in, you can ask any question you want, and we'll find out where your teen is academically, where they want to be, what university they want to go to, what they want to be when they graduate university, and how we can help. And if we're a good fit, then by all means, you can invest in one of our courses. All right, everybody take care, and I'll see you on the next one.